Hello, my name is Annette. I have CF and I had a double lung transplant 6 years ago. Welcome to my channel. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As promised on my Instagram, and if you don't follow my Instagram, go ahead and follow it now. And on there, I posted a picture of my IV. And as you can see, I am in the hospital. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what happened and why I ended up in the hospital. The last picture I posted on Instagram was me wearing a mask, and I was actually sitting in the waiting room waiting to get an x-ray. So a few weeks ago, I started having a cough, which I actually ignored. I didn't think it was a big deal, but the cough progressed and I started producing sputum, and it felt a lot like CF for me. I also had a drowning feeling, especially at night when I would go to bed. I would need a second pillow. And so eventually I called my transplant clinic, and they were concerned because my sputum culture had grown Pseudomonas. And so they felt that the right thing to do would be for me to come into the hospital in order to get that Pseudomonas under control, because it had very few sensitivities to oral antibiotics. In fact, the only antibiotic orally that it was sensitive to was Cipro, but unfortunately Cipro causes me horrible joint pain. So they didn't want to put me on Cipro. So instead they said for me to come in, and so I did. I came in 3 nights ago, and I've been here for I've been here for 3 nights, 2 full days, and I've been doing IVs, and I've been on Zosyn. And I am feeling better than I was last week, but today actually my doctor came in and said that he thinks that this was actually caused by the rhinovirus, which is actually basically the common cold. And I did culture the rhinovirus, and so while a lot of people believe that the rhinovirus was just kind of there and the Pseudomonas was making me sick, my transplant doctor was like, no, I think it's the other way around. He thinks that it's the rhinovirus that's making me sick, and the Pseudomonas is there because, well, it's always been there. Anyway, to make a long story short, he's going to do a little bit more research and look into my labs, and if he is right, then I get to go home tomorrow, which is very exciting, because when you are post-transplant, antibiotics can actually do more harm than good. Their side effects, you feel them a lot more. So I've already started to feel some of the side effects, such as an upset stomach, which I actually thought was from the coffee. I thought the coffee was too strong at the hospital, but he thinks it's actually a side effect from the antibiotic. Also, if you use antibiotics too much, you become resistant to them, and then when you actually really do need them, they don't work. And so there's always a very sensitive balance that you really have to kind of tread very carefully. Otherwise, you can overuse something and then it won't be there for you when you really do need it. That being said, the rhinovirus, while healthy people usually get over it in less than a week, I was told today by my transplant doctor that patients who are immunocompromised or immunosuppressed, like post-double lung transplant patients like myself, it can actually take up to 6 or 7 months. I know, months, right? That's insane. As you can hear, my voice is kind of a little like weird if you compare it to other videos that I've done. I think that that's a combination of me being still a little bit sick, possibly from the rhinovirus, and also it's very dry. I am a little bit dehydrated. I'm not sure why. It's possible that the virus or the bacteria is causing it. My nurse last night also said that the antibiotics can cause dry mouth and dryness. And also I'm in a hospital, which tends to be very dry as well. So I'm hoping to maybe go outside sometime today and soak in a little bit of humidity. That being said, I am in Southern California, so it's usually not very humid here, but I'll take my chances and hope that outside is just even a little bit more humid than it is inside the hospital, where I have been for the last 3 days or so. Anyway, so that is how and why I ended up in the hospital. I wanted to talk a little bit also about getting sick when you are immunocompromised, such as when you are post transplant, any organ transplant, and you are taking immunosuppressants. Cold and flu season is just around the corner, and I will actually link a video that I did last year about what you can do to stay healthy during the winter and holiday season, which also actually applies to cold and flu season. So I will link that below, and please feel free to check it out. There are some interesting tips and some tips that you may not have thought of that I do. Also, this is my first hospitalization in over 5 years, so I just wanted to put that out there, that, you know, the things that I do, that I mentioned all of the things that I do in that video, they really do work and they really do help, and so I invite you to try and let me know if you have any other pointers, or if there's anything else that you do that I haven't talked about in that video. Let's see here, what else I had. Other things I wanted to talk about. I always come on here without a script, by the way, and most of the time I come on without makeup. This channel is meant to be very real. I am a CF person, and this channel is for people with CF or people who are considering transplant of any kind, really, but mostly it's geared toward people with CF who are thinking about a double lung transplant, or people who have had a double lung transplant and maybe have questions, or are just on a journey that they're unclear about. I have been mentoring people with CF for a little over 6 years now, who are thinking about transplant, and I'm always happy to talk about my experience. I'm always happy to answer any questions about transplant, about CF, about anything, really. And I feel like while this hospitalization, it was definitely very unplanned, and it was a unique experience, and it continues to be so, because most CF patients go through hospitalizations or IV antibiotics on a fairly regular basis. But if you're one of those lucky CFers who doesn't have to go through this except for once in a blue moon, you know, once every few years, then you'll understand how awkward it is to have an IV and to be in the hospital, and to be, you know, kind of ripped out of your everyday life. And it's really hard. And it's, you know, if you're not used to it, it can be very jarring for you, both physically and emotionally. And you know, now that I've experienced it, I think that I'm actually in a better position to help patients with CF, or people who are thinking about transplant or have just gone through transplant. I post-transplant went through a lot of, it was like an emotional roller coaster for me, because I felt like I was a completely different person, and I didn't really know who that person was yet. And it took me this long, and it'll probably continue I mean, my journey of self-discovery and figuring out who I am post-transplant, when CF takes a much smaller role in my life. CF has taken a backseat in my life, really far back, actually. And while transplant is definitely at the forefront of my life, I do take medicine for it every day, twice a day. I do go to clinics, visits approximately every 3 months or so, and I still do labs whenever they need me to, in order to maintain my levels of the immunosuppressants that I talked about in my Take Meds With Me video, which I'll also post down below, because I do talk about all the meds I take, what they do, and how often I take them. And so that might be interesting for you as well, if you are thinking about transplant, or if you're new to transplant. And so, yeah. I just wanted to show you guys, you know, that, you know, after transplant, life is amazing, but it's not always a picnic. And, you know, you still have to be responsible, and, you know, there will be bumps in the road, and you just kind of have to believe that they're gonna turn out okay. I came into the hospital knowing that I was going to be fine. I never had any doubt that I would be fine, even though there was a very still small voice inside me that kept saying, "Oh, this could be bad. This could lead to something much worse." You know, it's like the little devil voice inside your head that's constantly telling you that, you know, this this is going to get worse. This isn't good. And you start thinking about all the things you could have done better, all the things you did wrong. And granted, there are some things that I could have done better. And one of the things that I would like to talk about, and I do talk about this in my other video as well. I'm adjusting my IV here because I'm not used to having it. Is to stay away from sick people. And I was actually in very close proximity to someone who was sick. And while I did have the option of leaving, I made the decision to stay because this was my fiance and I wanted to be there to support him. I had always been someone who, when he gets sick, I leave, and he kind of guilt tripped me into staying. And of course, he never meant for me to get sick or for me to be in the hospital. He feels absolutely awful about that. And I think we've both kind of learned a lesson from all of this, which is good. I feel like this was kind of like a little dry run, a little practice run. It was definitely a lesson learned. And I'm grateful for that. We learn every day a little bit. And even before transplant, you can start learning and you can kind of start familiarize, I don't know how to say that word. Anyway, getting more familiar with life after transplant. And it really is whatever you want it to be, especially before. Visualization is very important and meditation is important. And I will say that before I got my transplant, I was very scared, very, very scared before transplant. And I didn't want to talk about it because I felt like talking about it would make it more real. The problem with that is that time continues whether you're standing still or not. Like I'm standing in one place, but the clock is still ticking behind me, and time has passed. In fact, this video is now over 11 minutes long. So while I have been standing here, not moving, technically not really doing anything but talking into my camera phone, 11 minutes has gone by. So whether you're ready for it or not, whether you're comfortable with it or not, you can close your eyes, you can, block your ears, you can do whatever you want, but your disease will continue to progress. And as that continues to happen, transplant will become more and more of a reality. And so I, more than anyone, understand the debilitating fear that comes with thinking about and talking about getting a transplant. The idea of having someone else's organs, lungs, or if you're doing something other than lungs, heart, kidney, liver, whatever you're doing, or whatever organ you're going to need. It's a very foreign concept to most people, and it's not very it's not a very transparent thing, and most people don't really talk about it. And I definitely for the first year really didn't want to talk about it. I felt like it was a very private journey. It was a very emotional journey for me, and I didn't really want to talk about it even after I already had it. But definitely beforehand, I was very very silent about it, and I felt like talking about it was just going to make it come sooner. And actually that's not the case. What talking about it does is it kind of prepares you for it mentally and emotionally. That being said, you can never be completely prepared because you don't know what's going to happen after transplant. The minute you wake up from being on the ventilator, you're on the ventilator when you wake up, and then when they take the vent out, it's a whole new you, it's a whole new life. Even my hospital stay has been different than my CF hospital stays. There's very certain set times for medications, which are different from the times that I do them at home. And they have to adjust it in the hospital because of when they do labs, when the doctors come. And so it's a little bit different, which it was completely foreign to me because, when I'm at home, I set my own times and my own schedule. And when you're in the hospital, it's a little bit of a different schedule. I feel I've gone on like so many different tangents and touched on so many different topics. But the main thing I wanted to talk to you about was, why I was in the hospital and kind of what's gone down while I've been here. I will write a blog about this as well on my blog, lungsforanet.wordpress.com, and I will post a link to this video there as well. So if you don't find this video through YouTube, you can find it through my blog. That being said, if you have any questions, if you want to contact me, if you just want to talk about transplant, about CF, or anything at all, I will be available through the email address that I put in the description box below. You can also contact me via Instagram on my my Instagram account. Then I'm also available on my blog, lungsforannette.wordpress.com, and that blog actually goes all the way back over 6 years to when my transplant journey first started. So if you are someone who has CF or who is considering or thinking about or facing an organ transplant situation, I invite you to go to that blog and see all the things that I had to do, a lot of medical stuff, a lot of tests, a lot of emotions, and you might be able to relate to that and feel less alone. And that really is the point of all this, is to help you, whoever is watching this, to feel less alone, because being sick, being in the hospital, needing an organ transplant, and especially having CF, it can be a very lonely and isolating disease. People walk into your hospital room with mask on and gloves, and sometimes you can't even really see their eyes, and so it can be very it can take an emotional toll. So you are not alone, no matter where you are on your journey in your health and your life. Please know that you are not alone. You are cared about. And if there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know and reach out. And hopefully in my next video, we'll be back to my usual beach place, and I will let you know how everything goes from there. All right. Well, I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye now.